records everywhere. Happy Halloween, kids. It is Friday, the 31st of October, 2025. I'm Kenny Nightmare. And this is news from macOS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by NordLayer. Secure your network, block threats to your business, and save 10% with code macOSKen-10 at nordlayer.com/macOSKen. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSKen. Recapping Apple earnings for the fourth quarter of fiscal year 2025, the pros had it, at least in terms of revenue. Earlier this week, Apple 3.0 had Wall Street firms expecting Q4 revenue to come in at $102.5 billion, while Apple delivered revenue of $102.5 billion. They missed on earnings per share, though. Analysts had expected $1.78. Apple delivered $1.85, setting a September quarter record. Records everywhere, as I say. Apple's earnings press release said the $102.5 billion in revenue represented a September quarter record. That was driven by a September quarter revenue record for iPhone and an all-time revenue record for services. That all capped off a record fiscal year, with revenue reaching $416 billion, according to Apple CFO Kevin Perek. Eyeing the planet, net sales were up for every geography Apple tracks, Greater China not included. That said, Apple CEO Tim Cook spent time on Thursday's earnings call saying the company does expect to see profitability return to the Middle Kingdom this quarter. More on that in a bit. Looking at product categories, iPhone crushed it. CEO Cook had the phone setting a revenue record of $49 billion for the quarter, up 6% versus the same quarter a year earlier despite supply constraints on iPhone 17 and iPhone 16. CFO Perek had iPhone growing almost everywhere, with September quarter records in emerging markets like Latin America, the Middle East, and South Asia, as well as an all-time record in India. Tracking by World Panel showed iPhone to be a top-selling model in the US, urban China, the UK, France, Australia, and Japan, and they continue to be popular with people who buy them. 451 Research shows U.S. customer satisfaction hitting 98%. Also crushing it was the Mac. Revenue for Apple's looks like a computer came in at $8.7 billion, up 13% year over year. CFO Perek called out growth in every geographic segment, with strong double-digit growth in emerging markets. Close to half of people buying a Mac last quarter were new to the platform, and they dig that newness. Customer satisfaction in the States came in at 96%. iPad did not beat last year, though it didn't lose to it either. The Fondle slab pulled in close to $7 billion, same as the same quarter a year ago. CFO Perek pointed to last quarter's difficult compare against the full quarter impact of the iPad Air and iPad Pro launch from the year before. Better than expected performance actually makes staying flat seem pretty impressive. And everybody loves them, at least around these parts. 451 Research puts U.S. customer satisfaction with iPad at 98%. Also doing the flat thing, wearables, home, and accessories, with revenue at roughly $9 billion, same as the same quarter a year ago. Helping the category were Apple Watch and AirPods. Dragging the category down, that tough iPad compare mentioned by the CFO. Last year's raft of iPads meant super sales for accessories. The lack of iPads last quarter put a dent in those this year. If you look at the big wearable, though, Apple Watch is winning converts. Over half the customers purchasing an Apple Watch during the quarter were new to the product, according to Perec. Last quarter also saw a September quarter record for people upgrading Apple Watch. Needless to say, they like them. U.S. customer satisfaction with Apple Watch comes in at 95%. Services pulled a nutty. Revenue for that category came in at $28.8 billion for the September quarter, according to CEO Cook, marking a 15% year-over-year increase and setting an all-time record. Apple saw double-digit growth in both developed and emerging markets, according to Cook, with new all-time records across advertising, App Store, cloud services, music, payment services, and video. That's success across the services themselves and all over the map. CFO Perec had services setting all-time revenue records in the Americas, Europe, Japan, the rest of Asia Pacific, as well as a September quarter record in Greater China. As had been expected by the Financial Times, the September performance did pull Apple's services past $100 billion in fiscal year 25, well past. Analysts quizzed by the Financial Times had actually been looking for services revenue for the full fiscal year of $108.6 billion. Cupertino Company edged past that, delivering services revenue for the year of $109.2 billion. As the FT piece noted earlier this week, that put sales for Apple's services segment by itself, beating sales for Tesla, beating sales for Tencent, and beating sales for Walt Disney. Turning to the current quarter, Apple is so bullish. In his opening remarks, CEO Cook said the company is incredibly excited about the strength it's seeing across products and services, and that they expect the December quarter's revenue to be the best ever for the company and the best ever for iPhone. Such sentiments were echoed by CFO Perec, who had the company expecting revenue for the December quarter to grow by 10 to 12% year over year. iPhone revenue is expected to grow double digits year over year. Now, they're not expecting quite as much from the Mac, thanks to a difficult compare with the year-ago quarter. Q4 of 24 saw the introduction of new MacBook Pro units, Mac Mini models, and iMac, so sounds like the Mac is either mostly or completely done for this year and will not wow on the next earnings call. Services are still expected to grow, though. Gross margin should come in between 47% and 48%, which includes an estimated impact of $1.4 billion of tariff-related costs. And finally, operating expenses are expected to run between $18.1 billion and $18.5 billion. Comments from Perec seem to tie a lot of that to Apple significantly increasing its investments in AI while continuing to invest in its product roadmap. We'll hit the Q&A part of the call in a moment, but first a word from today's sponsor, NordLayer, a toggle-ready network security platform built for today's business. You've known Nord's name for years thanks to their consumer VPN. Built for business, NordLayer does that and a whole lot more, combining VPN, access control, and threat protection in one easy-to-use platform. No new hardware, no huge setup, just secure connection and full control in no time. Not that they're rushing you. NordLayer includes step-by-step onboarding and 24/7 support, and they're not looking to gut what you've got. NordLayer is a layer that can work with your existing setup, and it can grow with your needs, letting you add users, features, or servers in just a few clicks. From a few people to 50 plus, NordLayer has various plans and pricing options for you. So add their layer of protection to your business today. Get up to 22% off NordLayer yearly plans plus 10% on top with coupon code MacOSKen-10 at nordlayer.com/MacOSKen. Try it risk-free with their 14-day money-back guarantee. Keep your workers working safely and guard against outside threats with NordLayer. Get up to 22% off yearly plans plus 10% off with coupon code MacOSKen-10 at nordlayer.com/MacOSKen. With prepared remarks out of the way, the phone was open to questions from analysts. I'd said earlier that we'd talk about growth in China, or lack thereof. Melius research analyst Ben Reitzes put the question to Apple CEO, asking Cook how iPhone was doing there and whether Apple and China had turned the corner. Having just been there, Cook says store traffic is up significantly year over year and that the iPhone 17 line has been very well received. That reception will drive a return to growth for Apple in China in the current quarter, in the company's estimation. Yeah, cool about next quarter, but what happened last quarter? That was the question from Evercore analyst Amit Daryanani. AdRock wondered whether the September quarter weakness was the wait for iPhone Air, or was it something else? Acknowledging that Greater China revenue was down 4% versus the same quarter a year earlier, Cook says iPhone supply constraints drove the China results. He then reiterated increased store traffic, the positive reception for the latest iPhones, and the expectation of a return to growth in China this quarter. JP Morgan analyst Samik Chatterjee wondered how big a part smartphone subsidies are playing in the iPhone's momentum and anticipated recovery in the Middle Kingdom. While a lot of what Apple offers is priced too high for the subsidies to matter, Cook does say they play a favorable role. Lots of questions about iPhone outside of China as well. Goldman Sachs analyst Michael Ng asked about the mix of people upgrading their iPhones versus people switching from Android to iPhone. While Apple did set a September quarter record for upgraders, according to Cook, it's too early to tell what's going on with the iPhone 17 line in that respect. Supply constraints for iPhone came up a few times on the call. That prompted BofA analyst Wamsi Mohan to ask when those might be overcome. We're not predicting when the supply-demand will balance, said Cook. We're obviously working very hard to achieve that because we want to get as many of these products out to the customers as possible, but today, I'm not going to predict. And props to Citi analyst Atif Malik for being willing to waste his question. Does the consumer reception on iPhone Air give you a feel on perhaps the foldable phone market, or are the two form factors very different? You will be shocked to hear that Cook didn't really want to go there. What he would say is that Apple is thrilled with how iPhone has been received, and that's the reason that they're expecting double-digit growth in the current quarter. That's not everything that happened on the call, though it's enough to get you going. If you want more, there is more to be had. A replay of the call will be up on Apple's investor site for a couple of weeks. It'll also be up as a podcast to download and keep in your phone forever if you want. And as they tend to be, Six Colors was quick with a transcript Thursday evening. My work would be harder without their work, and I am truly appreciative. Not long after the call, a few Apple analysts raised their price targets on shares of the Cupertino company. Apple 3.0 had three of them hitting the double plus good button. Wedbush analyst Daniel Ives is still annoyed at not seeing an AI roadmap from Apple, calling the invisible AI strategy the elephant in the room. Apple's call for revenue growth in the December quarter of 10% to 12% was heard loud and clear, though. Keeping his outperform rating on the shares, Ives upped his price target on them from $310 to $320. Evercore analyst Ahmed Darianani said his keys a clickin' and a clackin'. Turned on by anticipated double-digit growth for iPhone this quarter, better than expected guidance on gross margins, services acceleration, and growing AI investment. Darianani maintained his outperform rating on Apple shares. He used his Thursday night note to raise his target on the shares from $290 to $300. And finally, JP Morgan analyst Samik Chatterjee seems to like Apple's swagger. Quoting his note, phone momentum is driving a stronger than expected guide, but also more importantly, what appears to be a higher than usual level of confidence from the management team in relation to the outlook shared for the December quarter. Chatterjee has an overweight rating on Apple shares. He raised his target on the shares from $290 to $305. This week on the checklist, brought to you by Secure Mac. What do you know? It's Halloween over there as well. There's a guy with an axe who wants to get into your iPhone. We'll talk about keeping him out. Plus, ghosts may not be real, but ghost accounts are. We'll tell you how to be a ghost account buster on checklist number 447. Find it today at securemac.com/checklist or wherever you get podcasts. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and sponsored by NordLayer. Save 10% with coupon code macOSKen-10 at nordlayer.com/macOSken. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSken. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media, online at backbeatmedia.com. You can find me on Mastodon, macOSken at mastodon.social. You can also send me an email, info@macosken.com. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken.
I'm Kenny Nightmare.
Look it! It's freaking bats. I love Halloween.